In this tutorial, I'm going to give you an overview of Socrative, which is a web-based student response system or clicker tool that you can use with your students to assess their understanding of your lesson. Using Socrative, you can create quizzes, space races, exit tickets, and quick question polls to see how your class is doing. To get started, go to Socrative.com. Once on this page, click on Teacher Login to begin. Instead of filling in your information to get a free teacher account, select the Sign In with Google option so that it can connect directly to your Google account. Once you're logged in, you'll be taken to a dashboard that looks like this. Giving students this room number will allow them to join your Socrative session and begin any of the activities that you've created. The first activity option that you have is to create a quiz. And using their quiz creator, you can create questions that are multiple choice, true, false, or short response. You can take any of those quizzes that you've created and turn them into space races, which would allow you to split your students up into teams that can compete against one another to answer your quiz questions in the shortest amount of time. You can also select Quick Question to poll your class on the spot and gauge their understanding through a verbal question. And finally, you can select Exit Ticket for a set of pre-created questions that will basically ask students what they learned in your lesson, what was challenging for them, and any other content-related questions that you may want to ask your students. So before we can begin any of these activities, we actually have to go in and create a quiz. To do this, we'll go down to where it says Manage Quizzes, and we'll select the first option to create a quiz. Right away, the first thing you should do is click at the top where it says Untitled Quiz and give your quiz a name. Once you've given your quiz a name, you can decide if you'd like this quiz to be shared or unshared. By sharing this quiz, it provides you with this SOC number. If you give this SOC number to another teacher using Socrative, they can share your quiz instead of having to recreate it. This is especially beneficial for members of your team. By clicking on Add Tag, you can also tie to Common Core State Standards if you'd like to. And once you have these settings established, you can go down and begin adding questions to your quiz. So if you select a multiple choice question, a box will appear where you can begin typing in the text box your question. You have the ability to change some of the font formatting as well as add subscript or superscript. Once your question has been typed in, you can also type in your answer choices below. If you need to add or delete answer choices, you can do that by clicking on these buttons at the bottom. Another nice thing about Socrative is that you can actually select as many correct answers as you'd like to. Below, you can type in an explanation for students that would give them more feedback about why a certain answer is correct. And if it helps, you can also upload an image to go along with your question. This may be especially beneficial in math if you have a chart or a diagram that you'd like to include as part of your question. From there, you can go on to add another question, picking from these different choices at the bottom. If you select True, False this time, it's very similar to the multiple choice formatting options, only difference being you'll have to just select whether the correct answer is true or false. You're creating the key to this quiz as you go. And finally, if you select Short Answer, the nice thing about this is you can choose to include correct answers, but this is optional. So students can type in a free response and not have it graded. However, if you press the Add button, you can actually insert as many correct answers as possible that the students will type in manually. So if you know that there's common misspellings to some of their answers, you can type in as many common misspellings as possible, and it would count any of those misspellings as correct. This also applies to if you have a question with more than one possible answer, you can type in those possible answers here as well. But this is optional. And then when you are all done with your quiz, you'll press Save and Exit, and it will be saved to your Socrative account. If you went back into Manage Quizzes here and went to My Quizzes, this is where you can go to access any of these quizzes that you've created and saved. At any point you can click on these quizzes and you can edit them, add or delete questions as needed. So going back to the dashboard here, and we'll go back into Manage Quizzes once again. Where it says Import Quiz, if you select this option, here is where you can go to type in this SOC number. So if a colleague of yours provides you with their SOC number to their shared quiz, you can import it there as well. You also have the option to download an Excel file from Socrative and actually develop the quiz in the Excel file and upload it into Socrative rather than using their built-in quiz creator. This is just a matter of preference. So if you would rather create your quiz in an Excel file and upload it, you have the ability to do that as well. So going back to our dashboard, let's go ahead and actually see what this looks like from the point of view of the students. So we are going to sign in students using this room number here at the top. And for demonstration purposes, we'll do this in another dashboard or another browser window rather. And instead of going to teacher login, they will select student login and they will be prompted to enter that teacher room. Right away, when they join the room, it will say kind of a pending status waiting for the teacher to start the activity. From your teacher dashboard here, you can actually see how many students are active within your room at a given time by looking in the top left corner here. So from here, we can press Start Quiz, and we'll select the first quiz here in this list. This is just your traditional quiz, but you do have some options as far as pacing and some additional settings as well. So if you were to choose student paced immediate feedback, this is very structured. The student paces themselves through the quiz and they do receive an immediate indicator letting them know if they were correct or incorrect, as well as the explanation that you typed in. If you did type one in there. They cannot go back and change answers because it is giving them the answers as they go, but they are able to kind of see some feedback right away. If you select student pace, student navigation, this will not let them know their performance as they go. However, they can go back and forth between the questions. They can skip questions, change their answers until they submit their final answers at the very end. So a little bit more flexibility, but less feedback. And teacher paced is, it's very self-explanatory. Basically, you as the teacher are controlling the pace of the question. So when you move students along, everyone in the class has to move along to the next question. So once you've selected your pacing preference, there are some additional settings at the bottom. You can choose to disable student names if you want this to be kind of anonymous. You can randomize answer and question order, which is beneficial if you have students sitting side by side and you may not want them to see other students' answers. And you can also choose to disable student feedback if you don't want them to know their performance as they go. So if you've selected your preferences, you can select the Start button. And when you do, what you should see then as the student is actually a pop-up box asking for them to enter their names. If you had disabled student names, they wouldn't be asked to fill in their names. But keep in mind that means then when you go to run reports, you won't have any student names. So disabling student names may not be something that you choose to do. And now you can see from my teacher screen on the left that it's updated and the student is now active in this quiz. All of your student names should populate in this list as soon as they've entered their names and they're active in your Socrative room. So as the student goes, they can answer questions and you get real-time feedback within your teacher dashboard. All of your students you'll be able to see in real time how they're performing And as the student's answer, like I mentioned before, if you choose the student paced option in the middle, they can move back and forth between questions and change their answers if they want to. And here's an example of a short answer question in which I put in many possible misspellings of the correct answer. So I'm going to type in the answer to this question incorrectly, but it is counting it as correct because this was a possible misspelling that I came up with. Of course, there's always the chance that the students will come up with a spelling that you didn't even think of, but you can try to be proactive and see if you can come up with some of the possibilities that they may enter in advance. So if they press finish quiz and confirm, they go back into this pending status waiting for the teacher, and you as the teacher can use this opportunity to do some reteaching. So I would not project this screen for the whole class to see. Obviously, you don't want to embarrass any students, but you can select the question and then have this displayed for the students to see, and then click on where it says how do we do, and this gives you an overall class percentage, letting the class see as a whole how they did in answering these questions, and then be able to have some discussions about these different answers. And when you're all finished, you can press finish at the top, and Socrative allows you to actually download some reports. If you don't want to download them at that moment, you can press view later and submit, and it will save them to your account. However, you can download them into a zip file on your computer or in your Google Drive and look at them right on the spot. So you can choose a whole class Excel file, which will list basically all your students' names, their scores, and the individual item analysis. You can also select individual student PDF, which is great for sending home to parents. You can also select a question-specific PDF, which will give you the breakdown question by question, how the class did as a whole. So I will give you an idea of what these reports actually look like. So this is your class Excel file, and it will display all of your students' names, their percent correct, and then the item analysis question by question. The PDF for the entire question analysis will just show you as a whole how your class performed, and in comparison to the correct answer, how many of those students in the class got it correct. And finally, the student file will display individual PDFs with the student's name at the top and their performance question by question. So you may want to print this and send it home, or share it with your students online if you'd rather. And then once you're done, you'll be taken back to the dashboard. So at this point, if we want to, we can take that same quiz in a space race mode instead. So in order to do a space race, you need at least 2 participants. Right now we have 1 student logged in, so let's log in a second sample student. And right now they're both in the pending status waiting for the activity to begin. So if we go to space race now, I will select the same exact quiz. I will select 2 teams, and you can choose to auto assign the team colors, or you can allow the students to pick their colors depending on your preferences, and then you can start the activity. And at this point you can see the 2 participants, their assigned colors, and from the student's view you will be able to see where they could start by entering their name. And at the top it will display a color, and this is how the students know what color team they are on. So let's say the student submitted their answer. It will give them right away instant feedback, letting them know whether or not they've answered correctly. And on your teacher screen, you can see it updating in real time, letting you know which team is in the lead. So that's the basic idea behind the space race. So we'll press finish now so we can get back to the dashboard. Quick question, we can ask on the spot a random question. It could be a multiple choice, true, false, or short answer. We can verbally state the question aloud and then prompt the students to type in their answers. So I'll choose short answer. Short answer allows you to type in the question if you want it displayed. Otherwise, you can just verbally state the question to students. You can also decide if you want there to be unlimited number of responses per student or just one submission. And then you can decide, do you want their names to appear or would you like this to just be anonymous? So if I was to start the activity, I could ask the students, what is your favorite Web 2.0 tool? And the students then will be able to submit their answers. And you'll see those answers appearing on the screen. At any point, you can press the little X next to an answer to get rid of it. Maybe you wanted to narrow down to maybe the top few answers, and you can actually start a vote, and the students can vote on maybe their favorite answer. So lots of possibilities for that quick question mode. And then finally, exit ticket. Like I mentioned before, these are preset questions developed by Socrative that just assess how the students felt about the lesson and the content that may be new to them. So I'll show you kind of what this looks like in terms of the questions asked. Basically, Socrative will ask, how well did you understand today's material? What did you learn today? And then it's a teacher-developed question. So this may be a question related specifically to the content that you were teaching that day. At any point, you can go back to the results and see how your class is doing with that exit ticket. Going back one more time to manage quizzes, just so you know, within manage quizzes is where you can go to access those reports that you may not have chosen at the moment to download, but they are saved so you can pull them up at a later time. So if you are done using Socrative with your class for that day, I would highly recommend that you go to the top menu and select Clear Room. And by doing that, what it will do is it will kick everybody out of your Socrative room and provide you with a clean slate. So maybe if you have the next class period coming in, it will be a new set of students, and you won't have inaccurate data with students from different classes, both in the reports. So hopefully today you learned something new and find some value in trying to use Socrative with your class.